Hey, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zakiya.
And welcome to our podcast series called
Fight the Swell.
That's right. This podcast will cover all kinds of topics related to hereditary angioedema, or HAE. Both Zakiya and I are living with HAE, so who better than us to guide what will hopefully be a very enlightening series of discussions with our guests.
Before we get started, we need to remind you that none of the information discussed on this podcast should replace your conversations with your healthcare provider. Each of us will be speaking directly to our own experience, and your experience may be different. Any questions regarding your health should be directed to your healthcare provider.
Okay, so today's episode is called Explaining HAE to Others. That can be so tricky because most people have never heard of or seen someone with an HAE attack. Zakiya, who's going to be helping us with this topic today?
Today, we are so excited to welcome Bobby Joe to the show. Bobby Joe was diagnosed with HAE in 2017 and lives with her family in Iowa. Bobby Joe, welcome to Fight the Swell.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's go back to when HAE was first explained to you, Bobby Joe. Was that when your doctor first diagnosed you? Or is there anything you wish you had known different about that discussion?
So when HAE was first explained to me, I was sitting in my doctor's office and he was a brand new doctor. And I went in to see him because he thought maybe he could help me. And HAE had never been on my radar before that day. And he came in and he says, I think you have hereditary angioedema. So he went out and was talking to one of the other physicians. When he was out of the room, I was sitting there looking it up on Google. And I'm like, this really does sound like what I have. And I had been fighting it for 7 years with nobody understanding what was going on with me. I wish that I would have known a lot before then. And I think that if I would have maybe did my own research on the side, that maybe I would have been able to come up with a diagnosis faster than the 7 years.
How do you explain to others what it means to live with HAE? How much detail do you actually go into?
So it does depend on my audience. If it's going to be somebody that I'm going to be around a lot, I explain the whole picture to them. I let them know that I can swell on the outside of my body and on the inside of the body. And I want them to understand what they can do to help me while I'm swelling. So I let them know what a swell could look like. I show them pictures. I let them know how I can react. And I also let them know on how some of my triggers are so that they understand what they need to do. So I want them to understand the whole picture of it.
Wow, Bobby Joe, that is some great information. How would you explain HAE to a child or a teen? And is it any different than talking to an adult when you're talking to them?
So I think when you're talking to a child and adult, you have to modify it down to their level. I think that it's important for the kids, if you are married or if you have children, for them to be involved right away. Them seeing you dose, them helping you getting your supplies out, because those kids will take in much more information. They are like a sponge. They are going to soak all of that up. And that way, if you run into a problem, those kids are going to be there to help you, and they're going to remember a lot more than what you think. Adults and teenagers, I think it's important to be upfront and honest with them. I think it's to lay the whole book out so they're very aware of everything that's going on, because we are very, very rare. Maybe if somebody else had heard about the disease or had known a little bit, just a tiny bit of information, getting the awareness out about our disease and helping people not to have to struggle so long to get the diagnosis or be able to go to the doctor and say, hey, I've heard of this disease, I've looked it up. Maybe we need to look at this a little bit close. So it's all about getting the awareness out to people.
So what would you say to people that are helping to care for someone with HAE? Like, how can they be the most helpful?
being supportive, I think, is the biggest thing, because we all need support, and just being there for us when we are grumpy. Don't think that we're trying to take anything out on you. We are just grumpy. We're starting to swell. We are hurting, and kind of be proactive. Help pick up the slack around the house. So that way, when we are starting to feel better, we don't feel like we are a day and a half behind, and where we need to feel like we have so much stuff to be caught up. Know what maybe you can do to help out around the house, or if there's something that needs to be picked up to the grocery store, go to the grocery store, pick it up.
That's a really good point that you made, Bobby Joe. I know for me, when I swell, it is very draining on my body. And so having, a support person to kind of pick up that slack, so when I do get my energy back, I don't have to drain it all back from trying to pick up things and wash dishes. That is a very good point that you made.
And Zakiya, I totally agree with you. And I think that that's what some people forget about, is how we are so draining afterwards, where we just might need that extra 5-6 hours in bed, even though we're not swelling and our swelling is done. But we might just need that extra time in bed just to get our strength back when our feet hit the floor, to be able to go again. And I think that most people forget about that.
So, Bobby Joe, we've been talking a lot about discussing HAE with our family and friends and strangers. Another aspect of our talking to people would be through virtual platforms or social media. So tell me, what do you talk about on those type of platforms?
So on those type of platforms, when I'm having a bad day, I will message my support group, my other HAE family, and because they understand where I'm coming from. I don't post a whole lot on Facebook, just because I don't want people to see that I'm having a lot of bad days or a lot of negativity regarding hereditary angioedema. I want them to see the positives. I want them to see the light. But I also like the fact that I will sometimes ask questions, like if I'm getting ready to go have a type of procedure that maybe somebody else's has done. I do like to ask questions so I can get a feedback and maybe be like, okay, this person has had this issue. I need to think about this, and it will just get me better prepared of what I can do going into something and have a little bit more information with it.
Yeah, that is awesome. I definitely personally feel that virtual platforms and social media are a great tool for the people to be able to share what they have and to bring awareness. I know that we use it often to discuss issues going on in our life and to get feedback from other people as well. And that's great.
Yeah, I try my best to always be positive when it comes to me, dealing with HAE, especially when it comes to like virtual platforms, just because you never know, someone may be watching my page and they might need that little inspiration. And so, that's why I mostly post about my good days. Sometimes I'll post about a bad day when I need to pick me up. But it just kind of, varies, I guess, on my mood. So, alrighty, Bobby Joe, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a great pleasure.
And thanks to everyone listening. We hope you'll join us for a future episode of Fight the Swell.
Until then, bye, everyone.